Hey guys, so I'm gonna try and keep this one a bit shorter, um, but I have found some disproportionately amazing things today at the flea market. So yeah, you won't believe at least one of the things you won't believe. It's just off the scale awesome. But let's start off a bit slower. And I don't know what I'm gonna title this thing because it's kind of a mixed bag. But let's start off a bit slower with the first thing, which is this. It's a quartz crystal oscillator, actually. It's made in France, and here's the cat. Um, it's made in 1979, and it's a 4.267 megahertz crystal. Let me see if I can focus and show you guys. This is Pokey. She's trying to be very cute. And look at her. Kitty petting break. Say hi to Pokey. Pokey is the prettiest, cutest, most lovely cat that you've ever seen in your life. Look at her face. Yes, yes, yes. Right, so this is quite an interesting quartz oscillator. It's actually temperature compensated, I think. And it's the first French thing I found at the flea market. It's got one of these beautiful large quartz crystals and some transistors to make up an oscillator, some capacitors, resistors, and a trimmer. And yeah, I paid 60 cents for this thing. Now that's euros giant. You can translate euros is the same price as a dollar, so you can do whatever, like a euro is a dollar and almost a pound as well, so it's crazy. Right, so not very cool like compared to the rest of the things that I want to show you, but needless to say, I was very happy to find this thing. I took it apart just to show you inside. I'm gonna try and solder it carefully back together, and I will use it as some sort of like, a reference thing, see how good it actually is, how stable it is in frequency, and how much you can trim it. This is a very nice precision trim capacitor here. Okay, now the next three things are all on. So we have a Klystron, a Vidicon, and a magnetron. Let's set this one aside for the moment, and let's talk about the Klystron. So this is, I believe, a Soviet copy of an American Klystron, I think a 723A Klystron, and I recognized it immediately because they have such a distinguished, unmistakable shape for, yeah. So we have two filament wires. This is a repeller, this is a resonator, and there's another grid inside. And what is a Klystron? Well, it's a RF amplifier, basically. I think this was more like just an RF oscillator, and it's tunable. So this can go up to something like 9 point something gigahertz, so it's pretty high up there in frequency. I actually don't have anything that will measure up to 9 gigahertz. And basically what happens is that there's a repeller and a resonator, and there's some fancy electromagnetics that happens inside, and by shifting this end here, which is on a bellows sort of assembly, you can tune the frequency a bit. Not very much so, but it is tunable. So if you look carefully, you can see that there is a thread with opposing sides, basically opposing pitches. So one's left hand and one's right hand, and when you turn this thing here, now it's spreading these two shims apart, which is in turn pulling on this thing, which creates a fulcrum. I think it's a second degree fulcrum, so maybe a third, I don't know exactly. So the fulcrum is here. the forces here and the resultant forces here. So you get basically a 2-to-1 force amplification or something like that. And it deforms this bellows sort of like contraption here, and it changes the distance from the repeller to the rest of the electromechanics inside, electromagnetics, what do you want to call it, and it tunes the frequency. And the output is this coax. Now, very interestingly, this only outputs something like 25 milliwatts, and filament is basically 6.3 volts like everything else. The suppressor voltage is negative, reflector is negative 100 something, and there's another grid which gets biased, the resonator gets biased at around 300 volts. So, and it's basically a modified octal socket, so you can see it's basically the same socket as a 6L6 or 6V6 or something like that, but it uses a, it would have a cutout pin that would fit the coax output. I'm going to try and insert some pictures from the datasheet so you can understand better how this thing works. I'm not entirely sure how they work. I know Klystrons are RF amplifiers usually, but from what I understand in the datasheet, this isn't really an amplifier, but more of an oscillator. And it's mechanically tuned, and that's the coolest thing that I found about it. So this goes into the rare tube collection alongside that electrometer pentode I showed you last time, and with the other two items that I have just to the right here. So let's get into those, and let's start with this. And actually, let me put it back in the way it was initially. Maybe you understand more about what this is, and maybe you can guess what this thing was before me actually assembling it fully. But as you can see, we have a yoke sort of assembly here. Actually, I did it the wrong way, I think. So this went in like this, and I'm touching the window, but I get the point. This went in like this, and the socket basically was connected like this, and we have a grounding thing, and then we have a B plus wire, basically the anode voltage, the acceleration voltage, and then we have a filament, etc., etc. And if you look on the socket, there's a couple of more markings saying some voltages. So we have the filament, probably a grid, another something, a cathode perhaps, and some other pins. This one's actually not connected. So, any guesses? Well, let me tell you more about this thing. So this is mu metal. You might be able to read this and Google it and see what it is. So let's think logically. So we have something that looks like a photosensitive window, right? And we have a yoke assembly. A yoke usually is for electromagnetic deflection of an electron beam. So you can see we have two sets of coils 90 degrees apart, 90 degrees offset to each other, right? And the yoke wires are connected here, and they were hugging very closely this tube, which is a 8758A, and it's made by Hitachi, made in Japan. And sorry that I actually scratched the writing off of it a bit, but such is life. And I actually bent one of the pins as well. Stupid. So, this is a Vidicon tube. Picture this. Truly picture this. Vidicon tubes were... apologies. My cold has taken exactly 7 days to go away. If I would have treated it, it would have only taken a week. So Vidicon tubes were the first, basically, commercially successful image video sensors, and they work in a very interesting way. So we have an electron gun in the back there of the tube, which has a cathode and a filament. The filament heats up the cathode. There's a couple of focusing grids, and then there's this accelerating grid, which scans with the help of the yoke, just like a TV screen, scans that beam of electrons over the surface of the photocathode, which is something like selenium. And when an image is projected onto this photocathode, which I'm basically ruining, brain fart, which I'm basically ruining right now because I'm exposing it to so much light. It charges up local deposits of charge, basically, and the beam current gets higher and lower according to where on the image the brightness of the image is, and you can measure that image, the brightness, basically in that spot, and correlating that intensity signal with the sweeping signal from the yoke, basically the vertical and horizontal sweeping of the beam, the scanning of the beam, you can create an analog image. And one fun fact that you might not know is sensor sizes were actually like 1/2 inch or something like that. Those sensor sizes weren't actually the diagonal of the sensor, it was the equivalent CCD that would fit on a window of that particular size of Vidicon tube. So, really, really cool. It goes straight into the awesome tubes collection. I'm really sad that I actually wiped off a bit of the marking here, but and I'll just ditch the yokes and the shield. This is a very heavy shielding thing because, of course, being an electron gun inside and a scanning thing, it's very susceptible to external magnetic fields, even to the Earth's magnetic field, and you need some heavy electromagnetic shielding around it. Okay, so we're getting through these at a pretty good clip. And yeah, awesome. I would count this as an awesome find, but it's nowhere near close to how awesome this find is. So I said that we would have 3 ons. We had a Klystron, a Vidicon, and now, can you guess what this is? That's a magnet. So this is a, say it with me. That's correct, it's a magnetron. Yes, so I finally found a magnetron that I actually wanted to take back from the flea market because it's usually full of microwave oven magnetrons and stuff like that. But this is special, and I mean it's special. So if you look right here, it says that minimum distance from the magnet should be 40 millimeters, and from the ferromagnetics, it should be 100 millimeters. Well, why? Well, magnetrons are basically, they're RF oscillators, and they generate a RF signal, or an electromagnetic radiation, basically. I think this is in the order of a couple of gigahertz as well. And the guy who sells me these drugs actually ripped off the connector that was connected to this thing, so it's basically just a paperweight now and a magnet. But so the way it works is we have a magnetic field going this way, and then we have some biasing, a filament smack dab in the middle, and that filament emits a cloud of electrons which start spinning around, and there's some cavities inside which create some resonance. And in one of the cavities there's a pickup point, this being the anode right here, I think. There's a pickup point in one of the cavities, or this might just be a ground, I might be stupid. There's the evacuation port, by the way. And one of the cavities, there's a pickup point, which is basically the RF output. And the RF output in this case goes to a sort of N-looking connector. I think it's not an N. It's something, it's one of these. I don't know what it is, but it's one of these, but larger. So yeah, I have no idea what it is. But dude, why are you so excited about this thing? It's just a magnetron. It like makes popcorn and stuff. Well, let me tell you where this thing comes from. So it looks very military. It's an MH829. It was made in 1969 in November. So basically the same year that humanity landed on the moon. And what was it used for? Well, you know what they used to get on the moon? Yes, that's right, a rocket, not a teleporter, of course. This actually comes from a surface-to-air missile. Go figure. This comes from the S-75 Russian-Soviet surface-to-air missile system, and it's the, I believe, the Doppler radar responsible for triggering the kinetic impactor or whatever that thing is, the explosion that would take out the target. So this, and I'll try and link some photos and put some photos I found on a website. Thank you, Stan. Stan actually found them for me. Of this actual thing inside the rocket, inside and sectioned out and cut in half, and you can see this thing mounted to the rocket and with the waveguide exiting and stuff like that, and it's just crazy. This thing comes from, I repeat, a surface-to-air missile. Well, needless to say, that missile was never fired because this thing would have been vaporized in a cloud of white smoke and dangerous things. But this was in a surface-to-air missile. It was in a piece of munitions. It was in a people killer thing, and I despise that thought, but just how cool it is. Think of how cool it is to find a piece of military warfare, like ammunitions, smart ammunitions, no less, at the flea market. So when my good friend Mr. Reps said that Romania truly has the best flea markets, well, yeah, he was right. Nobody else, I'm pretty sure, has ever found a surface-to-air missile radar at a flea market. This is just crazy. So let's recap. Vidicon, magnetron, Klystron. We have optics and RF, amplifier, oscillator, generator, and image sensor. And these three are right now, along with that traveling wave tube I showed you a while back, I'm going to link the video below, are by far the coolest items I have ever found at the flea market. And this one takes the top spot easy, hands down. This is going to go into my display case with a picture of the rocket next to it and with an explanation, so everybody who comes and visits me will instantly know that I'm crazy enough to have found a magnetron at the flea market, which comes from a surface-to-air missile. I keep saying that, I'm sorry, but it just blows my mind. A few interesting details. This is a horseshoe magnet, and one of the very important things about a magnetron is the uniformity of the field that makes the electrons go round and round. You spin my sorry, it's stronger than me. And you can see that there's a laminated core here. I don't know if you can see in the reflection. Yeah, you can. A laminated core which directs the field towards the cavity. And the cavity is semicircular. It's almost perfectly circular. And the thing is that, you know, an electron in a magnetic field changes its angle, like changes its orbit. It gets twisted. Lenz's law, I think. And but it doesn't change its speed, so it just keeps on orbiting inside, and it oscillates in those cavities, and one of the cavities taps off a bit of that power to use it externally. This is basically how your microwave oven would work at home works. Microwaves use a magnetron, which is powered by one of those very dangerous, beefy high voltage transformers. Emits RF at around 2.45 gigahertz, which just corresponds to, just coincidentally happens to be the exact frequency at which water has a very, very high dielectric loss. And because of the high dielectric loss, the water starts vibrating, it dissipates power, and it turns that power into heat, and it cooks your food. So that's why you can't really cook desiccated things in a microwave. If there's no water to absorb the power from the magnetron, there's no power to be dissipated. There's just massive reflections inside of the microwave, and I think it might actually even be able to damage the magnetron because of too much reflected power. And yeah, that's how you cook your food. Warm up your food, leftover pizzas or hot pockets or whatever. I wouldn't know. I've never had a hot pocket in Romanian. Jesus. We don't have hot pockets here. I don't know what they taste like. So, 3 ons. I wanted to get a Thyratron. I don't know. I'm just gonna write it down. I don't know what the name is. The pronunciation, the correct pronunciation, Thyratron or something like that. One of those mercury discharge tubes. It's like a triode, but it's fully on or off. But they were covered in asbestos insulators, and I don't want lung cancer. So maybe next time I'll figure out a Thyratron for you guys. Actually, give me just 1 second. So I promised you another on. Remember the DP5, the good old DP5? I think I showed it in the past video or something. Well, it has Thyratrons in it, and I actually bought a spare. So these are, I don't know exactly what the model is. It's a T something. These are hydrogen Thyratrons, and let me just do a bit of fancy work with the lighting, and we can see them light up and even glow. Because these are used to shape the pulses from the Geiger tubes. By the way, I don't know if I said this or not before. The DP5, which is this thing, has 2 Geiger tubes inside. An SDS5 and an SI13BG, or SI3BG, I'm sorry. This is the low range one. This is equivalent to an SBM20, so if I just tuck in an SBM20 instead of this one, it would just work the same. I think I might have an SBM20 handy. Yeah, I do. Basically the same thing, it's just the SBM20 is a newer, more refined version. This is the high range tube. This goes up to 200 Röntgens an hour, which is roast your children levels of radiation. This doesn't work in the Geiger region. No, this is continuously discharging, so it's basically always in breakdown, and they measure the current through the tube to determine how roast your children levels of radiation there's around you. So yeah, that's a very unique way of using a Geiger Muller tube. It's not even, it's not on the plateau. It's continuous. It's in continuous discharge, and oh, sorry, I was going to show you the Thyratrons. It's in continuous discharge, and it's basically like a light sensitive resistor at that point. Okay, give me a few seconds. I'm going to try and power this thing on, and we can take a look at how Thyratrons look when they glow. And just wait a second. So, what you can see there is the background discharge of the Thyratrons, and occasionally you'll see a flash. That flash is basically one of the impulses that gets shaped from the STS5 towards the by the Thyratrons into a pulse. It gets shaped as a pulse and then fed into the integrator for the display. And you can see, you just saw a couple of them, which correspond to the background radiation around here. Now, I don't have anything radioactive on hand. I don't think so. I had some uranium glass, but I don't have it handy. Apologies for that. Another flash. And yeah, so this is one of those. It's basically like a triode, but it's only on or off. It's got hydrogen gas inside and the fourth on. So I gave you Klystron, magnetron, Vidicon, and Thyratron. And that was the 4 ons of Flea Market Finds episode, whatever this might be. I hope you enjoyed. This has been an absolute kick, like surface to air missile magnetron. It's just brilliant. You can see it's magnetic. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you liked this video. This was extremely exciting as a find. I didn't know anything other than that it was a magnetron, and I'm grateful to Stan for actually telling me what it was, because I would have probably just told you, oh look guys, I found a magnetron at a flea market. But yeah, where it came from, that was the true hotspot of the day. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video. Have a great day. Bye guys.